what this points to is a lack of sustainability in the arts. And the arts are in the real estate business, but they're never rewarded for it. They're incredible instigators of value within real estate, and they're just never rewarded for it. If you are a young artist going to New York City, it's a foolish opportunity at the moment. It's a fool's errand to go there. You don't land in a rent-controlled apartment. You land in a very expensive marketplace, where in Brooklyn the rents are averaging around $2,500 to $2,800 for one bedroom. You're going to sort yourself into something better, but how better? Because when you tip a working career into 40 hours or 50 hours into another industry to support being an artist, you're not in the end going to paint very well at night in your kitchen. If you're doing a creative pursuit, a creative economy job, you're working 50, sometimes 60 hours. That's the nature of the beast in that end of the industry. There are three things that creative community needs. It's time, space, and people, and arguably New York City has time and people who have zero space. So it's sort of a shame. But Detroit has time and it has lots of space, and it's gaining that critical element of people.
But I don't know. I think this is a really interesting question. We're all living in precarity. I think we need to reimagine the value of artists and, the teenage kid who's delivering pizzas and then he plays in a punk band. Like, is he not as valuable as someone who's working for any of these design companies that we have? I can't even. There's so many in town. There's such a big divide within creative labor and who has the right to be creative in society and who doesn't. This crowd, for example, doesn't look too diverse. What does that mean? What does it mean to have 7 of the top 10 higher ed institutions be the most expensive, and those being art schools? What does it mean to have that situation? What does it mean to have a $120,000 arts degree, and then you come out and then you tell someone when you're out to dinner, like, oh, like, what do you do? Like, oh, I'm an artist. Like, oh, good for you. That's great. All these like huge questions, that we're all, it doesn't matter like what age we are, what stage in our career we are, we're all grappling with what does it mean to live in this world, and to be subjected to the mainstream capitalist society where like capital, we're beholden to our debts. What are the connections beyond that,
Over the course of your years, could you lend some advice to how to start from nothing and grow? Because certainly real estate costs capital and
maybe in the wrong city.
Yeah.
Like there,
Yeah.
Detroit is just it's there. It's you can find buildings for $5,000. It's amazing. You might have to fix the roof, but as long as you own the place that you're in, you can never get booted out. So your experience was just to be pushed on. Real estate said, thanks, done with you for now. We're going to do something similar to you, but see ya, and off you go. And that happened to us twice in New York City. We got, moved out of 2 spaces, and the last one we could have stayed in, by paying $30K a month. But at what point does the mission dial move over to the business end? It's too far one way and it's out. So I really think it's about where it's location, and it's about owning. And the location has to be where you can own.
There seems to be this rumor going through the Midwest that artists need to leave and then be vetted by a coast and return to be taken seriously. Why is that perception there? And what is the reality?
In Canada, we're like that, but for the entire country.
Okay.
We think that unless you go and come back, you're not really successful. It's because New York has been so important for so long, and it has been very, very functional. It has been a great place for people to mix and cross. And so it's living on reputation, quite honestly. I mean, if you have to go work in advertising for 50 hours in a week, it's the best young artists aren't going to make that compromise. They're just not going to go there. So you're kind of left with the rest, and that means the ideas that you're surrounded with aren't the best ideas.
So we can together as a panel tonight debunk that you have to live on a coast. Is that
the pipeline going to New York City is essentially turned off for young, good artists who are demanding to have a career, who want a career. It's essentially, the pipeline is cranked down, and this, capacity, this unmet capacity is building up in these regional cities, and it needs to go somewhere. And I think it'll start to fall pretty quickly onto Detroit.
But also to add on to the conversation about real estate, I think it's important to, not just put all our eggs in one basket in ownership and the real estate market. Think about a place like Detroit. Capital kind of failed Detroit, failed the people. Suburbanization spread out the white rich people, and you left the underprivileged, the forgotten people in the city. And then you had uprisings, and then is capital going to save those people? Who has the right to bring Detroit back? Detroit has always been there, and where's it coming back from? Who has the right to, tell the story or create that community? I think also we need to stop using the phrase placemaking and think of it in terms of place taking. Also, we have to acknowledge that this land that we're on right now is not our land. We stole it from the Native Americans. Yeah, just so many questions. Like, who has the right to
Aren't you paralyzed at the end of asking all of them? I mean, there's social justice in doing things fairly, right? But it doesn't mean no action.
I know, but we have to understand that when we're saying in our mission statements we're creating community, who is the community? Who has access to this? Who has the time to do this? Who can take equal ownership of it? Are we supposed to rely on organizations like ArtPrize to create the arts community, or the artists who have been here and always have been here? Is it who has the say in what happens in Grand Rapids? Is it Rockford? Is it CWD? Or is it the people that we romanticize within these communities? These are the questions that we have to answer. What is the kind of city that we want to create, and who can be a part of that conversation?
Well, I think there's great models now. Philadelphia has a program where so the second stage of growth often happens where people are bumped out of their houses because the tax rate goes up too high, right? So their valuation skyrockets because their neighborhood's gentrifying. And nobody comes along and gives you a raise because your neighborhood's doing well, right? So your taxes go up and you're kind of bounced out at that second level where you can't stay in the game and put your kids through college with the increase in value. So Philadelphia made a program where if you're under a certain wage threshold, your taxes stay the same. They don't go up, right? So it's keeping people in the game. So boom, your taxes don't go up. You don't have to go get a new career, God forbid, because you can't anyway. And so now you're in, and your apartment your house can keep ascending, and you can sell it at $400K at some point. Have the difference and do life with it. So you're a stakeholder, you're kept in the game, and you're brought through all the way to when you want to say, I want to get out because I want to cash in.
But it seems like we're all trying to work against each other and try to get the upper hand on one another. Like the dude who bought our space, he came in, had little to no experience within that community, the people living there, and he's like, thanks guys, see you later. And it's been empty. It has been participated in ArtPrize projects in years past, but for the most part, it's just been empty. And it could have had music shows one night. It could have had community meals the next night. It could have had book swaps. It could have had so much activity supporting the people who are living and working there. Instead, this guy who just wants to cash in on his social capital, whatever the hell that means, and he kicks us out. Are we really a creative city when that shit happens? I'd say no.
Well, I think what you're drawing light on, Mike, is that while there's interest in creative renovation of spaces, it's important to remember that some of the low-income inhabitants of those are, from the get-go, artists, right? Like, we leave undergrad or whatever, and our pockets are dry. We're paying bills, and we're not operating, at full steam. So I think that's a good point to shed light on. What does sustaining mean beyond financial sustenance, and how do we do it? And by that I mean, how do we divide our time to grow these things? I know myself, I'm working 9 to 5 and then often 5 to 9 every day. So I'd be curious, what are some of your strategies for balancing all of these activities, and how have they changed over the years?
I guess just sitting down and having frank conversations with people, like, what do you need? How can I help? I can't offer that much, but I have these skills, X, Y, and Z. I'm struggling right now, and then a friend offers to make a meal and come over, building real relationships, not relationships based on exchange of money, but exchange of ideas, of feelings, and so just people power. I think we romanticize it so often, but we don't we don't really utilize it that way. You know, I think there's other ways of us to create a more, as ArtPrize says, an intentional community, you know, that we're all working to create a place that we can all be proud of and to be a part of.
Start small. I mean, there was a space in Chicago called Art Ledge that was in a pretty much walk-up stairway, and there was a little ledge, and the people who owned Art Ledge or ran Art Ledge would exhibit a work on that small little ledge. And you do that for enough time, just like Michelle and Brad, they ran a space out of their home. I mean, Felix Gonzalez Torres came to their space, or bringing together a collection of people. I mean, I think that's another thing artists really rely on is people around them. This whole thing about having, I don't know, it's like the art world and then the real world. And the real world and the art world seem separate, but at the same time, especially right now, I've heard platform mentioned a number of times. There are all these things that both are sort of like, everyone has a part-time job now. I don't know, you got to work hard and you have to have a passion.
I think both those things
are
are
be in the
great.
right place, right time, and be a good person. And that all sounds like a Boy Scout sort of motto, but, you know.
It's so agreeable, though. I couldn't argue
you know,
with that.
and at the same time, you don't want to alienate people. You realize that art requires financing, and you don't want to ostracize the people who, a lot of times, fund the arts are people with money. And what do? You piss them off, or do you at the same time show them, hey, we're creative, we have something here, give us a chance. I mean, it's not going to be sexy like Art Miami Basel or anything like that. And I think that's the beautiful thing about the Midwest, is there are people with money here, and we just have to turn them on to sort of these spaces that really invest in the, the community. People really want to help, but you have to be in a position that you will receive help by, giving a good business model, putting on a smiling face, saying that, hey, I have something to offer. Please listen.
Yes, right in the back.
This is kind of a general question, and it's kind of speaking to what Mike was talking about. I was actually on the DAAC board from 2008 to 2011-ish. I spent the time there. I did an internship with the UICA when it was in this building, so being in this room is kind of funny because I was running around when I was 16 in this room. So I've kind of have had a history in the Hardside community, which is here where this building's at and over where the DAAC used to be on Division. And something that I noticed and that I think is really interesting, when you talked about the original community that was part of an artist community that gets displaced, you mentioned the kind of newly graduated college art students, kind of like those creators that are really young, that they just come out of kind of home or work or school and are trying to create space and trying to work together and collaborate. But as far as what happened in the block here, it was kind of those people that helped displace people and kind of helped sort of gentrify themselves out. It was really interesting because when I was going to go to a DAAC meeting about them being kicked out of the space, an old boss of mine was like, oh yeah, you're gonna go, help the pioneers of gentrification, like get their space back. He was just sort of trying to pick on me, and I was like,
Sure. So you have a thought on maybe how to cope with that?
I think that there's kind of a relationship that even kind of your DIY or artist-run artist space has with the community, where it still kind of acts like an institution and it still kind of acts as tone deaf, for lack of a better term, to sort of the work in the neighborhood in and of itself. And so kind of leads kind of a question of how can you really be in a community and be in a space and interact with it in a conducive way that isn't just, coming in and then hoping you don't get displaced or pretending like you're the one that's getting displaced when you might have been.
Yeah, that's a really heavy question. I think a nice one to, we've all touched on a little bit about how we've approached entering and interacting with our communities, but maybe that might be something, unless anyone has an immediate remark, that I might welcome you to take on with you to happy hour, dinner, wherever you're going on next, and talk about how you're forging those relationships with those in your community, about how you observe community interacting with art on the ground here and ArtPrize, that whether you're visiting or not. And something to think about is all the players involved in each of those instances.